in the media conference with Lal Goyal, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, Organ Donation India Foundation and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topics. And today is a very, very important topic, and that is crime against women. Today, the world is observing International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. The United Nations General Assembly has designated November 25th as the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. The premise of the day is to raise awareness of the fact that women around the world are subject to rape, domestic violence, and other forms of violence. Furthermore, one of the aims of the day is to highlight that the scale and the true nature of the issue is often hidden. This year's theme for the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women is Orange the World, Fund, Respond, Prevent, Collect. Like in previous years, this year's International Day will mark the launch of 16 days of actives that will conclude on 10th December 2020, which is International Human Rights Day. Historically, the date is based on the date of the 1960 assassination of three Mirabal sisters, political activists in the Dominican Republic. The killings were ordered by the Dominican director Rafael in 1981. Activists at the Latin American and Caribbean feminists marked November 25th as a day to combat and raise awareness of violence against women more broadly. On December 17, 1999, the date received its official United Nations resolution. The United Nations and the Inter-Parliamentary Union have encouraged governments, international organizations, and NGOs to organize activities to support the day as an international observance. We hope by observing International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, more and more awareness will be created so that crime against women can be reduced, if not stopped. Crime against women. Now we are coming to our main topic, that is crime against women. Violence against women is not culture. It is not cultural. It is criminal. Equality cannot come eventually. It is something we must fight for now. Violence against women in India refer to physical or sexual violence committed against a woman, typically by a man. Common forms of violence against women in India includes acts such as domestic abuse, sexual assaults, and murder. In order to be considered violence against women, the act must be committed solely because the victim is female. Most typically, these acts are committed by men as a result of a long-standing gender inequalities present in the country. Violence against women in India is actually more present than it may appear at first glance, as many expressions of violence are not considered crimes or may otherwise go unreported or undocumented due to certain Indian cultural values and beliefs. These reasons all contribute to India's gender inequality index rating of 0.524 in 2017, putting it in the bottom 20% of ranked countries for that year. According to the National Crime Records Bureau of India, reported incidents of crime against women increased 6.4% during 2012, and a crime against a woman is committed every 3 minutes. According to the National Crime Records Bureau, in 2011, there were 228,650 reported incidents of crime against women, while in 2015, there were over 3 lakhs reported incidents, a 44% increase. Of the women living in India, 7.5% live in West Bengal, where 12.7% of the total reported crime against women occurs. Andhra Pradesh is home to 7.3% of India's female population and accounts for 11.5% of the total reported crimes against women. 65% of Indian men believes women should tolerate violence in order to keep the family together, and women sometimes deserve to be beaten. In January 2011, the International Men and Gender Equality Survey Images questionnaire reported that 24% of Indian men had committed sexual violence at some point during their lives. Exact statistics on the extent case occurrence are very difficult to obtain, as a large number of cases go unreported. This is due in large part to the threat of ridicule or shame on the part of the potential reporter, as well as an immense pressure not to damage the family's honor. For similar reasons, law enforcement officers are more motivated to accept offers of bribery from the family of the accused, or perhaps in fear of more grave consequences such as honor killings. A dowry death is the murder or suicide of a married woman caused by a dispute over her dowry. In some cases, husbands and in-laws will attempt to extort a greater dowry through continuous harassment and torture, which sometimes results in the wife committing suicide. In Uttar Pradesh, 2,244 cases were reported, accounting for 27.3% of the dowry deaths nationwide. In Bihar, 1,275 cases were reported, accounting for 15.5% of cases nationwide. An honor killing is a murder of a family member who has been considered to have brought dishonor and shame upon the family. Examples of reasons for honor killings include the refusal to enter an arranged marriage, committing adultery, choosing a partner that the family disapproves, and becoming a victim of rape. Village caste councils or khap panchayats in certain regions of India regularly pass death sentences for persons who do not follow their dictates on caste or gotra. The most prominent areas where honor killings occur in India are northern region. Honor killings are especially seen in Haryana, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Jharkhand, Himachal Pradesh, and Madhya Pradesh. Female infanticide is the elected killing of a newborn female child or the termination of a female fetus through sex-selective abortion. In India, there is an incentive to have a son because they offer security to the family in old age and are able to conduct rituals for deceased parents and ancestors. In contrast, daughters are considered to be a social and economic burden. An example of this is dowry. The fear of not being able to pay an acceptable dowry and becoming socially ostracized can lead to female infanticides in poorer families. Modern medical technology has allowed for the sex of a child to be determined while the child is still a fetus. One study found that 7,997 of 8,000 abortions were of female fetus. The fetal sex determination and sex-selective abortion by medical professionals is now a rupees 1,000 crore industry. India is considered to be one of the world's most dangerous country for sexual violence against women. Rape is one of the most common crimes in India. According to National Crime Record Bureau, one woman is raped every 20 minutes in India. In India, marital rape is not a criminal offense. India is one of the 50 countries that have not yet outlawed marital rape. 20% of Indian men admits to marital rape. Domestic violence is abused by husband or relatives of the husband. Every 9 minutes, a case of cruelty is committed. 38% of Indian men admit they have physically abused their partners. The Indian government has taken measures to try to reduce domestic violence through legislation such as the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. Acid throwing, also called an acid attack, is a form of violent assault used against women in India. And so on and so on and so on. The long list of the crimes against women. And today, to discuss this crime against women, we have a very knowledgeable, learned, elite panel with us. And I would like to invite my first panelist guest, and she is Advocate Nirmala Samant Prabhalkar. Advocate Samant was the first lady mayor of Mumbai from 1994 to 95. She was the chairperson Maharashtra State Commission for Women from 2000 to 2004. She is advocate of Mumbai High Court. She was professor of law in Siddharth College from 1986 to 1990. She is treasurer of famous Sri Siddhi Vinayak Ganpati Temple Trust, Mumbai from 2007 till date. She did television program on DD Sayadri in K. Kadyacha for women and society about legal rights and written many articles in print media. She is nowadays actively involved in creating legal awareness for deprived. Welcome, Advocate Samant, on our show. Advocate Samant, the report which I have just presented is very, very alarming, very sad. As a man, I can say I am ashamed to read. When I was preparing this report, I was feeling so sorry. But this is the fact, and this is nothing. As the report says, so many unreported cases are there. Now, we would like to know from you the crime against women. Advocate Nirmala Samant, please.
Mr. Goyal, may I first of all thank you for giving me this platform to speak on this topic, violence against women or crime against women. And in your inaugural or introductory talk, you have touched most of the aspects, which we all are going to discuss about it and talk a little bit in details. But I will restrain my time up to 7 to 10 minutes maximum, and I give you liberty to remind me because I can't look at the watch and talk also. So I might get engrossed, but I will not mind if you tell me to stop so that the other participants also get time to speak. You have rightly mentioned that today is the day where international, it's a day of international day of elimination of violence against women, and there are other participants who are eminent who are listening to it. We all know that CEDAW was the declaration which was signed that all the governments should sign to protect women, prevent violence against women, and give them equal status and equal opportunity and dignity. And Bharat Sarkar, that is Indian government, is also signatory to the Beijing Platform Document CEDAW. And I feel proud to be part of today's lecture to commemorate and to see that we are following that documentation, and today we are we are supporting that document, and we are supporting elimination of violence against women. Now, you have rightly taken the topic that it's a crime which exists in our country. It exists everywhere in the globe, but more in patriarchal society. And unfortunately, India belongs to the patriarchal tradition norms, which are not actually in favor of progress of women. And that is why you in your speech also said that it is nothing but a gender-based violence or gender bias violence. And my emphasis is that why this topic is very, very wide, and I mean, the more you discuss, the more you understand the aspects of it. But yes, definitely, it's India is from historically, from mythologically, from time immemorial, is known for violence against women, and there are so many examples to that. But coming back to the point, why does it exist? Why it exists in India in a typical format? In globe, it exists in various formats, but in India, I'm talking about, it exists in a because we and it has increased to a phenomenal level in spite of making various laws to control it, to prevent it. As you rightly said, that we cannot stop it immediately, but we can control it, we can prevent it, we can stop the acceleration of the growth which at that rate which is happening. And that's why it has a deep existence. It is deep rooted violence. It is deep rooted that connectivity is there because we are a patriarchal society. We are having a patriarchal norm. And what are the patriarchal norm? Is that which speaks about woman is a commodity. woman is a material object. She is only to be used for rearing and caring the children. उसका जो ये है मर्यादा है वो घर के अंदर ही है. लक्ष्मण रेखा लगाई गई है. वो घर के बाहर निकलेगी तो वायलेंस होगा ही. ये बेसिस के ऊपर अगर हमारा पेट्रियार्कल समाज जाएगा, if we follow this, then definitely woman is treated as a commodity. And moreover, she's a very good lady if she is a very sacrificing time. अगर आप गॉड गॉडेसेस को भी देखेंगे तो ज्यादातर speeches is on her beauty and her young age, and very less we will see that her bravery is appreciated. And she's treated as she's just subjugation. वो submissive होनी है. She has to bow down to a man. So subjugation is there. And men means what? Men are there to do the wars and win the wars. And gender-based violence is many times male feels that he man, masculinity, then financial control, then social control, political control. अभी भी reservation कहाँ है parliament में? So political control is there. Decision making, all men take decision. Women are taking, our education level is increasing high and high. But at the same time, the voice is given to men in parliament, in legislative assemblies, except local self government reservations are there. So therefore, and then what happens? Then this is because of the patriarchal norm. How it impacts? It impacts on physical abuse. It impacts on sexual abuse. It impacts on emotional abuse. It impacts on the family abuse. So domestic violence is there. Sexual abuse may rapes and acid attack, as you mentioned in that. So all forms of violences, a crime against women exist in because of that patriarchal norms are there. Then family abuse, domestic violence is there. Women are denied for food, shelter, maintenance, and she has to go to the court and ask for her rights. Now let us say workplace. Yes, women are working, and there are lots of good laws which have come into place. But still, woman faces violence at workplace. Then abuse in the stomach, as you rightly said, that PCPNDT, when a girl child is there, the sex-selected abortions are there. Now in India, if you see that equal, the skewed sex ratio, which is supposed to be 50-50%. But if you see overall skewed ratio, which shows that a child is not welcomed by a mother in a stomach only. And that has been spoken by various leaders. And this technology is used to abuse the welcome of girl child. And this is what is happening. So denial, then what happens? The abuse starts, then her property rights are denied. अभी सती प्रथा तो बंद हुई है, but because satis were there, and in Maharashtra Devdasi prathas were there. Sati was that lady was burnt alive in the name of religion. Thank God that in the Indian government made a law and sati pratha. It was nothing but denial of her property rights. In many other country, many other states, abhi bhi, if you see that witchcrafts are there, women are burnt to death. Witch hunting is a Diane Bulana. It is what? It is just denial of a property rights. And then let's come that the government has made laws. I think if my time is over, then we can come to what are the laws to prevent it, and how much law has made impact in reduction of crime, and what is the way forward. That I can come to the as per your questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Advocate Nirmala Samant. And Advocate Nirmala Samant has explained in details about the atrocities done by the men on women. And she says there is a maryada, there is a limit. And they says that the lady is good if she is in house. If she goes out, the violence will be there according to the man, which is totally wrong. And she says still there were so many things are happening in the states. Okay, the sati pratha has been stopped where the lady was burned alive, but still Devdasi pratha, although I think Advocate Samant, it is also
Yes.
stopped legally, but still a few places it is might be there, or even sati pratha or the bal vivah, the child marriage, all of these banned by the government, but still they are there. And she said about the witchcraft, that how the lady was called Diane and witches, and that's why they just try to kill them. And so that the property can be taken. Although now the Supreme Court recently has come out with some judgment where they are giving the rights to the daughter-in-law for the property. But there is again a controversy about whether what will happen to the mother-in-law if the property belongs to mother-in-law. So though many things are there, but according to her, in India, the condition of women still is not as good as where other parts of the globe. And she says for that everyone has to come forward, and that today's day, because when we are having this international day for the to prevent the violence against the women, we must come out and do more work so that crime can be stopped. Thank you very much, Advocate Nirmala Samant, for giving your opening remarks. Now I would like to go to Advocate Madhulika Saina. She is MA LLB BYN. She is a practicing advocate in Delhi. She was the panel member of Mediation Center District Court Mathura. She is panel advocate for banks. She is a member of INO. She is very active worker for women's right and women empowerment. आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है. एडवोकेट निर्मला सामंत ने अभी बताया अबाउट कि किस तरह कंडीशंस बुरी हैं स्त्रियों की इंडिया में, और जबकि हम इंडिया सिग्नेटरी है बीजिंग पैक्ट का, जिसमें साफ लिखा है कि कंट्री जो है राइट सेव करेगा स्त्रियों के, लेकिन इसके बावजूद भी अभी भी हम वही पुरानी परंपराओं पे चल रहे हैं. हम जानना चाहेंगे अब आपके व्यूज ऑन क्राइम अगेंस्ट वीमेन. एडवोकेट मधुलिका प्लीज.
सबसे पहले आपको धन्यवाद कि एक नारी होने के नाते मेरी आवाज इस मंच पे से अपने बोलने के लिए आपने मौका दिया मुझे. देखिए, जो एक काफी बातें जो हैं सावंत जी ने बोली, वो एक हद तक बहुत सही है कि हमारा सामाजिक स्तर इस तरीके का है कि वो नारियों को आगे उठने के लिए देता ही नहीं है. तो सबसे बड़ी विडंबना यहाँ पर ये आती है कि जिस नारी को हम देवी मानकर पूजा करते हैं और उसी के साथ में हम क्राइम करते हैं, तो ये एक मतलब एक अपोजिट हो जाता है कि एक दूसरा पहलू हो जाता है कि एक तरफ तो आप देवी मान करके उनकी आरती उतार रहे हैं, पूजा कर रहे हैं, उनको सर्वोत्तम स्थान प्रदान कर रहे हैं, और दूसरी ओर उसके खिलाफ ऐसा अपराध कर रहे हैं जैसे कि उनको मारना, पीटना, गाली गलौज करना. ये तो बहुत ही आम बात है, ये तो बहुत मामूली सी बात है. अब ये उनके रेप करना, उनको मतलब मार देना, तो ये अगर आप देखा जाए तो ये समाज के लिए एक बहुत ही आने वाले समय के लिए बहुत डेंजरस स्थिति होती जा रही है. अभी भी बहुत ज्यादा खतरनाक है ये, क्योंकि अगर आपने जैसे बताया कि NCRB यानी कि नेशनल क्राइम रिकॉर्ड ब्यूरो के अनुसार जो 2018 की रिपोर्ट थी, उससे लेके अब तक 7% जो है ये क्राइम अगेंस्ट विमेन इंक्रीज हुआ है. तो अगर देखा जाए तो नारियों को केवल एक सीमित कर दिया गया है कि हाँ, उनको देवी बना करके उनकी पूजा करो, लेकिन उसके साथ ही उन पर अत्याचार जो है और दुगना होता जा रहा है कि वो कहीं भी, अगर आप देखिए कि नारी कहीं भी सेफ नहीं है. अगर वो एजुकेटेड है तो वो अपने मतलब घर में भी अगर देखा जाए तो क्या वो जॉब करती है तो वहां पे सेफ नहीं है, अगर वो घर में रहती है तो वहां सेफ नहीं है. मतलब किसी भी तरीके से नारियों का किसी भी स्थान पर सुरक्षित नहीं है. अब वो चाहे वो घर हो या बाहर हो. आप देखिए घर में भी जो है कि आप मैक्सिमम देखिए कि जो वायलेंस होता है वो उन्हीं के घर से शुरू होता है. कि जब बच्चियां छोटी होती हैं तो बहुत से ऐसे परिवार हैं कि जो कि नहीं साहब भी ये तुम लड़की हो, तुम यहाँ नहीं जाओगी, तुम लड़की हो, तुम सिर्फ घर के काम करोगी. वो लड़कों की बराबरी उनको क्यों नहीं दी जा रही है? अगर वो समाज में हमारे जो देश में अगर वो आधी आबादी के नाम से कही जाती हैं तो उनको वो सम्मान क्यों नहीं मिल रहा है? तो ये जो है ये एक बहुत बड़ी मतलब सिचुएशन भयानक होती जा रही है कि नारियों के लिए अगर उनके एक तरफ तो नारा दिया जा रहा है कि बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ, और दूसरी तरफ उन्हीं बच्चियों के साथ में गलत व्यवहार किया जाता है, उन पे उनका रेप किया जाता है छोटी छोटी बच्चियों के साथ में. तो वो जो है समाज के प्रति कुछ कह भी नहीं सकती हैं और वो अपनी आवाज भी नहीं उठा पाती हैं. एक तो हमारा समाज भी ऐसा है कि उनका पूरा सपोर्ट नहीं कर पाता है नारियों का, क्योंकि ये एक हमारे कल्चर बन रहा है, एक कल्चर है, एक शुरू से एक मेंटालिटी चलती चली आ रही है कि एक पुरुष सर्वोच्च समाज है ये, कि यहाँ पर जो भी कुछ होता है एक पुरुष के द्वारा ही किया जाता है. अब कहीं भी अगर किसी लड़के को अगर कहीं कोई जाना होता है तो वो किसी से ज्यादा परमिशन नहीं लेता, सिर्फ इन्फॉर्म करता है. लेकिन अगर किसी उसी की बहन को कहीं जाना है या परिवार की लड़की को कहीं जाना है, उनके बहू को कहीं जाना है, तो 2 दिन पहले उनको मतलब बताना पड़ेगा कि नहीं साहब मुझे वहां जाना है, उनको क्लियर करना पड़ेगा कि नहीं मुझे ये काम है। तो क्वेश्चन अराइज होगा, क्यों, बहुत जाना जरूरी है क्या, आपके साथ में कौन जा रहा है, आप कहाँ जा रहे हो। तो ये चीज जो है, ये इस तरह से इतने सारे क्वेश्चंस उनसे पूछे जाते हैं कि उनको एक मतलब हैरेस कर दिया जाता है क्वेश्चन पूछ पूछ के फैमिली से ही। तो यानी कि आप हम कह सकते हैं कि जो ये क्राइम स्टार्ट होता है ये कहीं बाहर से नहीं आ रहा, ये हमारी फैमिली के अंदर से ही शुरू हो रहा है। तो आप ये देखिए कि जो रेप केसेस होते हैं उनमें से 40% रेप केसेस बाहर नहीं होते हैं बल्कि फैमिली के अंदर ही होते हैं। कि कोई फैमिली के अपने रिलेटिव हुए या कोई फ्रेंड हुआ या फैमिली के अपने नियरेस्ट होते हैं। आप न्यूज देखिए, अभी न्यूज में आता है कि ब्रदर के द्वारा, फादर के द्वारा रेप किया जाता है। तो ये क्या सिचुएशन है, हम ये कहाँ जा रहे हैं, ये हमारी सोसाइटी जो है ये हमें कहाँ लेके जा रही है। तो इस तरीके से आप देखिए कि हर तरह से किसी ना किसी तरीके से जो एक नारी ही इस अत्याचार की सहती आ रही है। अच्छा, उसके अलावा उनको ये भी सहना पड़ता है कि नहीं साहब, समाज में अगर हम रिपोर्ट भी नहीं कर पाती है, वो कहीं अगर रिपोर्ट करेगी तो वो समाज के लोग उसको डराएंगे कि अरे तुम्हारी बदनामी हो जाएगी। तो क्या जो पीड़िता है केवल उसी की बदनामी होती है, जो करने वाला है, जो अपराधी है, जो क्रिमिनल है, उसकी कोई बदनामी नहीं है। तो समाज भी उनको सपोर्ट नहीं करता है कि समाज के डर दिखाता रहता है। अगर मान लीजिए कोई बहुत ही अपने आप को हिम्मत दे करके कहीं रिपोर्ट करती है, पुलिस थाने में जाती है, तो पहले तो वहां पर भी उनके साथ में बदसलूकी होती है, और उसके बाद में अगर रिपोर्ट दर्ज भी हो जाती है तो फिर जो है, जो करने वाला अपराधी है उसके साथ में जिसने अत्याचार किया है, तो वो उस पर दबाव डलवाता है। वो पैसे दे करके या समाज का डर दिखा करके या मार पीट करके, धमकी दे करके उनसे केस वापस लेने को कहता है। तो पैसे दे करके कंप्रोमाइज भी करने की कोशिश की जाती है कि इस तरीके से जो है एक अपराधी को ही हमारा समाज जो है या सब लोगों की तरफ से जो समाज में अपराधियों को खुला छोड़ दिया जा रहा है। जो एक पीड़िता है उसको घर के अंदर बंद होकर रहना पड़ता है कि अरे वो निकल के जाती है तो 10 लोग उसकी तरफ घूर के देखते हैं और उस पे कमेंट पास करते हैं कि अरे साहब ये तो वो है, अरे इसके साथ तो ये हुआ था, अरे इसने वो किया था। और लेकिन उस लड़के को कोई कुछ नहीं कहता है जिसने कि उसके साथ ये वायलेंस किया, अत्याचार किया। अब जैसे फैमिली मैटर ही ले लीजिए कि बचपन में से लेकर के कि काफी फैमिली में यही होता है कि लड़कियों को पढ़ाया नहीं जाता, कम उम्र में उनकी शादियां कर दी जाती हैं, और अगर शादी हो जाती है तो शादी के बाद में उनका हस्बैंड जो है वो उन पर अत्याचार करता है, उन पर अत्याचार होना शुरू हो जाता है। कभी दहेज के लिए, कभी किसी और चीज के लिए। अगर मान लीजिए बेटियां हो जाती हैं उसकी, तो वो उस बात के लिए भी उस पर अत्याचार किया जाता है कि साहब ये बेटा क्यों नहीं हो रहा है। तो इसमें यहाँ नारियों की क्या गलती है? किसी भी तरीके से आप देखिए शुरू से लेकर अब तक कि एक लड़की की, एक स्त्री की, एक नारी की क्या गलती होती है बचपन से लेकर। जो बचपन उसको अपने एजुकेशन देनी चाहिए, उसको स्कूल भेज करके पढ़ाना चाहिए, वहां उसके फैमिली, उसके मदर फादर उसको रोक देते हैं। फिर उसके बाद में जब शादी के बाद में उसको थोड़ा फ्रीडम मिलनी चाहिए कि भाई अपनी कुछ अपनी इच्छाओं से वो कुछ कर सके, अपने समाज में अपने कंट्रीब्यूशन दे सके, तो वहां उसको रोक दिया जाता है। और बल्कि उल्टे कि लड़की की शादी अगर लड़की है तो इसका मतलब कि दहेज देना पड़ेगा। सबसे पहले तो माँ बापों के लड़की होते ही ये आता है कि शादी होगी तो हमारा खर्चा बढ़ जाएगा, दहेज देना पड़ेगा। और ये जो मेंटेलिटी है, इन सब चीजों को दूर करने के लिए हमारे समाज को आगे आना होगा। और इसके लिए सरकार कानून तो बहुत बनाती है, इसमें सरकार कोशिश करती है कि वो आगे स्त्रियों के लिए सुरक्षा प्रदान करे। लेकिन ये सुरक्षा अकेले सरकार की जिम्मेदारी नहीं है, वो तो कानून बना देती है, लेकिन कानून का इम्प्लीमेंट कैसे होगा, ये हमारे समाज के, जो हमारे आसपास की सारी एजेंसियां हैं जो हमारे आसपास रहती हैं, उन सबको मिलकर के काम करना पड़ेगा, ताकि एक नारी को जो है इस तरीके के आगे इन आने वाले फ्यूचर में हमारी बच्चियों को, हमारे परिवार की लड़कियों को इस तरह की त्रासदी ना झेलनी पड़े, किसी क्राइम से रूबरू ना होना पड़े। अब जैसे सती प्रथा का था, तो सती प्रथा के लिए भी जब समाज हमारा आगे आया तभी, और सारे लोग, सारी एजेंसियां मिलकर आगे आई, तभी वो बंद हुई। लेकिन बाल विवाह है, बाल विवाह के लिए भी कानून बना हुआ है, लेकिन अभी भी बहुत सारे समाज हैं जैसे कि राजस्थान, हरियाणा, यूपी, उन सब में इस तरीके का है कि लड़कियों की जल्दी शादी कर दी जाती है, वो 13-14 साल की होते ही उनकी शादी हो जाती है। तो इस तरह से ये चीजें भी बंद होनी चाहिए।
Okay.
तो मतलब
Yes.
समाज कुल मिलाकर के सारी जो हमारी एजेंसियां हैं, जैसे कि फैमिली है, समाज के लोग हैं, पुलिस है, तो ये एडवोकेट्स भी, खुद एडवोकेट भी कई बार मैंने ये देखा है कि वो लोग गलत का साथ देते हैं, जहां पर कि नारियों के ऊपर उनको पता है कि ये अत्याचार हुआ है, लेकिन फिर भी वो उस एक्यूज्ड के तरफ से वो जो है फाइट करते हैं। तो ये भी उनको मैं अपने एक एडवोकेट होने के नाते बोलना चाहूंगी कि एक प्रण ले लें, एक प्रतिज्ञा करें कि जो एक्यूज्ड पर्सन है उसके खिलाफ केस न लें।
Okay. Thank you, Miss Advocate Madhulika, for giving your views. And Advocate Madhulika has raised two very important points. One point is that the crime against the women starts from home, and she says that from the childhood, the girl faces lots of crimes or lots of control which the boys are not facing, and that's why the crime started. The mentality among the boys or the men becomes that the girls are not supposed to go out, they should do this or they should not do that. So that type of mentality and the crime, so according to her, the crime starts. And secondly, she says, why if there's suppose the rape takes place, why only the victim is going to be punished socially, not the accused? Why the man is not being socially outcasted, only the girl or the lady has to suffer the burn? And she has, in the last, she has appealed to all the advocate fraternity that they should not try to take any case where the rape is taking place. Although Advocate Madhulika, I think in your law, it is mentioned that accused is not, until unless he is not proved guilty, he is innocent. So that's why the advocates take the case. But yes, your point is that they should try to avoid. Okay, thank you very much, Advocate Madhulika, for giving your views. Now I would like to invite my next guest, and she is Miss Nutan Jha. Miss Nutan Jha is the founder and proprietress of AdLib Sports and Project Management, one of the most experienced and qualified project management heads in the industry. She was an outstanding student from Wellams Girls School and Lady Shriram College on the All India Merit List of the ISC board, graduated with a first division and third position in Delhi University. Her love for management of projects, events, and sports began at Tata Steel. Her first job was in the CDSW department. Moving on to Dadanji and Company law firm and the startup team of IMG, she started her own project management firm, AdLib. She has managed large projects such as Super Saucer, Steel City Golf IPL, WSH, Kochi, Binale, ISL, Hong Kong Sixes, India Park cricket matches, Challengers Trophy innings with pointing, etc. AdLib has worked with many successful clients like Tata Tea, Hero Honda, ING Vyas, ING Vyasa, BNB Paribas, Nimbus, and many others. Ms. Jha is also a qualified nutritionist and health coach and a director with Bodhi Tree Media Private Limited. A life member of Intech, she is now working on a festival of the arts to boost tourism in lesser visited parts of India. Welcome, Ms. Jha, on our show. Ms. Nutan Jha, you have already heard what Advocate Nirmala Samant as well as Advocate Madhulika has mentioned. And they both are very, very clear. Although everybody is talking about the crime against women, but nothing is taking place, no restriction or no control is there, even by the government or by the society, although there are so many laws are there. So now we would like to know your views on the crime against women. Ms. Nutan Jha, please.
Good morning, everyone. I think a number of points have already been covered, so I'm just going to read out what I've put down. Now, crime against women is a worldwide phenomenon, as we know. While widely discussed in worrisome crimes like rape, child marriage, acid attacks, sexual harassment, and domestic violence are deplorable, we do have so many other effective and some not very effective activities. Now, I want to focus on stretching the definition, include a number of other issues, as Ms. Nirmala has mentioned, and Ms. Madhulika, which in my opinion are the root causes for the crimes being discussed today. So today I'd like to concentrate on the crimes or actions against women that are committed social setup rather than just by individuals or groups of them. Let's start with one of the major issues, which three of you have touched upon, Mr. Lal, Madhulika, and Nirmala, gender biases in society. Now, the difference between daughters and sons is where it all begins, as we've already discussed. So where does this gender discrimination exist? Which are the parts it touches? Education, inheritance of property, typecasting in jobs, typecasting in dressing, typecasting of behavior, like don't cry like a girl. I mean, really, changing of surnames. The reference here now, when I talk about changing of surnames, it's not extreme feminism, but I'm talking about merely a point of convenience for work identity and personal comfort or personal choice. Now let's see what happens when we favor one gender. Why are we saying we shouldn't have gender biases? The minute you favor a gender over another in any aspect, property, etc., the favored gender is likely to feel a sense of entitlement. Now that will lead to a deprived gender as lesser or inferior, or worse still, that they belong down there. Now, well-sowed idea in society creates inequalities, as Mr. Lal mentioned right in the beginning. The inequalities result in lack of respect. In some extreme cases, it may also be misconstrued as a gender that belongs to it and must not be allowed to rise above or break away from that bracket. Because this whole idea and mentality is so ingrained into society, it's not just about men versus women, it's about crime against women, which both should look at as a society. Now, when you think that a person should not be allowed to move out of a bracket, that may lead to denial of equal rights at work, in a marriage, in politics, or any other place. Now, how often have we heard the phrase, I allow my wife or daughter-in-law to work? Again, I'll have to say, really? I mean, who put you up there to allow someone to do something? In my opinion, this is where the seed is sown, where people believe that they are up there. They, in their own sense, are not wrong because they believe that that is correct. They have been brought up to believe. So what are the little things we can do, you, me, people around us who are educated and who want to change? It begins with changing society, changing the world. It sounds like a big task, but it's actually really very simple. So I'm just going to discuss a few points that I think can help make changes with your, my, and other people's actions, words, and outlook. First thing is, I'm going to request people like parents, guardians, lawmakers, corporates, teachers, writers, movie producers and directors, artists, leaders, and society in general to make these changes. These are the people I am addressing. The transition may require some extreme measures somewhere, but mostly small changes in our daily lives. And by fine-tuning our words, beliefs, and actions and phrases, and how we talk to people, what is it we say, I think we can make a lot of change. First of all, parents, please do not talk about having a son, or society in general, talk to people, if you have a son, he will carry your name. Please remember, it's really very simple. If your daughter does not change her surname, she is also carrying your family's surname. So don't make a big deal out of it. Anyone can carry your family name, and more than the surname, it will be the kind of deeds that your children do, not about sons and daughters. Then do not typecast jobs for your sons and daughters. I would like to also add here that we as a society, as parents, should not make a big deal if a woman does something in an atypical field. I'll just give a small example like Kalpana Chawla. Everyone made such a big deal. Everyone says, or Gunjan Saxena, so many people. So let's take it as normal. It is another person come into the job. It is something to be proud of, definitely, because it was not being done earlier. But as time goes by, let's start talking about it to our children as if it's a very normal thing. Another very small but important issue is dress code. Now that is still implemented in certain parts of India and certain families. There is still a dress code for girls. Please, let's not do that. Life is not a Karan Johar movie where when you're a young and mischievous student, you're wearing jeans and short skirts, and the minute you get married or you become a good girl, you have to wear a sari or salwar kameez. Let us not judge people, especially women. This is something I would like to say to other women. Let's not size up other women. Let's not judge them on the basis of their dressing, on the length of their skirts or shorts. Let people be the way they are. That is not a point. And that is something, as you all know, a lot of leaders have also come up and said, why should girls dress in a way they are attracting rapists? I'm sorry, your morals remain the same regardless of the length of my skirt or regardless of the way I talk or laugh. If your morals can change according to someone else's dressing or talking, then there is something wrong with your upbringing. Please go back and ask your parents to teach you well. Then property laws, which we've already talked about. Now, property laws have been made more inclusive, but like Ma'am Madhulika said, implementation is missing. And what about just punishment for violation of these laws should be made more stringent. And how many children want to go to court against their parents? How many people have to do that? Court cases drag on for years and years. My family has fought a property case for 68 years. I mean, how do you explain that? Divorce cases for 17 years. So let's just, I leave this to the lawmakers, to the think tanks. Think of something and some way where we can solve this. Now, basic education being a right, I wonder if we could have some stringent law to look into parents and families that discriminate between the type of education they give their boys and girls. Fine them, criminalize it. I don't know, maybe that's extreme. Again, I leave it to the legal minds to think of something for that. What about the responsibility of politicians and policemen? Excuse me. How many leaders have come up with outrageous statements on how girls and women ought to live, or how they deserve to be raped, as Mr. Lal said? Let's start raising our voices against them. I think it's high time that the government took this more seriously and does not pay any attention and actually blocks out people, especially on social media. You look what's going on nowadays. Any woman comes up with anything that is not considered in line, they are threatened with rape. You cannot make us live with this. Someone has to do something about this. We cannot ignore that. It is cybercrime. What's happening? Why aren't people doing anything about these threats that are online? Then one of the most heinous crimes in my book ought to be mental torture by suppression, oppression, and rejection. Like, again, both my co-panelists have already mentioned, people are rejecting and ill-treating women in the house. Sometimes husbands or in-laws actually ill-treat women because they're not well-spoken, well-dressed, well-educated. Come on, that's your family. Educate them, show them how to be. Do not reject people. Do not suppress them. Do not oppress them. And it's time that we started raising our voices against this. We could begin in our own homes. It is the rural areas largely that are problems. We could begin in our own homes by telling our domestic help, by educating them, telling them to raise a voice, helping them out, maybe giving them a little bonus if they are educating their girl child as well as their son. We could help out in our small ways. If we do not raise our voice, I think what we are doing is we are encouragers of crime, and we are actually encouraging cowards, especially, I keep saying, especially leaders and our lawmakers. If we do not raise our voices, then we are encouraging them. Now, to conclude, I would like to, I've already touched upon the point of women trying to uplift women. That can be a huge point. Stop belittling others. And I think a lot of girls are going to love this. This is one for mothers-in-law. Please, please do not belittle your daughters-in-law. You know, there is room for two people in a family. Two people can be intelligent. Two people can hold, you have your CM and deputy CM. So come on, if they can make adjustments, you can. Stop belittling people. When your time is over, move aside. Let the new generation take over. Don't belittle people because they are better, because they are good at something. Accept these things. Accept, and you yourself will create a family which will respect women. Your son will respect his wife. Their children will learn how to behave with women around society. So to conclude, I'd like to say that each one of us can contribute to changing society. Speak up when you hear someone saying anything that belittles women, for that matter, which belittles anyone. Speak up if your parents or grandparents have been unfair in dividing family property with the girls in the family. Don't just think that because you've got it, you should keep quiet. Even if you're a daughter-in-law or if you're a son, a brother, speak up. Speak up, provide equal opportunities at home and at the workplace. That's another topic. But correct your children if they so much as mention gender inequality, especially your sons. Involve them in the housework. Teach your household help these points. Like I said, maybe a little bonus for something good that they do. Express gender equality in art and books. If you, just a minute, if you see something offensive, make it a point to write to the school or the artist. If you see something offensive in books, let people know that though there are those who will not tolerate this. And also a very important step in addressing the larger crimes are to please start teaching the law and make people aware at the school level. Let people know what their rights are, what to do when they are in trouble, what is it, what are the actions that they can take. Okay. And I actually wish we had a few men also, Mr. Lal, on this show. I would have loved to hear what they had to say.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jha. Actually, we do not want any tutu meme on our show. That's why I have not invited any men on this show. Otherwise, they would have, I don't know how they can react. And that's why we want to hear from you. After all, you are having almost 50% of the population belongs to you. If you cannot speak, then who is going to speak? And definitely men will not speak in favor of you. Like to have their own wisdom, they would like to speak from their side. Thank you very much, Ms. Jha. And Ms. Jha has already explained each and everything in detail. I need not to brief, otherwise I will be, they will blame me that you are taking so much time and they are not getting the time for speaking. So now I would like to invite my next guest, and she is Ms. Taranga Sri Raman. Ms. Taranga is the Strategic Coordinator of Resource Center for Interventions on Violence Against Women of Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Ms. Taranga was National Consultant to the Ministry of HRD, Government of India for Mahila Samakhya program from 2008 to 2012, during which she was also a member of the Inclusive Education Working Group Task Force of the Ministry's RTE SSA National Advisory Council. Her areas of interest and expertise are gender, sexuality, VAW, education, and feminist praxis with the state in particular. She studied MA in social work in TISS Mumbai and has worked in Bihar, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, and Delhi with various organizations and networks. She enjoys training and teaching, learning of feminist social work, practices with both full-time students and social sector practitioners, which is an occasional and important part of a professional role as well. Welcome, Ms. Taranga on our show. Ms. Taranga, you have already heard what Advocate Nirmala Samant has mentioned, as well as Ms. Nutan Jha, as well as Advocate Madhulika has mentioned. I think I've taken her name correctly, yes. And so now we would like to know from you, your views on crime against women. Ms. Taranga, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Goel. And also, I mean, I just want to say hello once again, and how pleased I am, how honored I am to be on be with all my very experienced co-panelists, especially Nirmala ma'am, as she knows our work for many years in Maharashtra and in other states through the Special Cells for Women approach, which is a field action project of the Tata Institute of Social Sciences as a school of social work. We are now doing this work in 15 states. Basically, what we do is provide psychosocial legal services from within state systems, so sarkari systems, especially the police system. But we've also worked on helplines, on legal amendment, on the protection system under the PWDV Act in Maharashtra and Haryana. So we're doing this work in a number of states, and I am going to be speaking from the lens of an interventionist who works closely with criminal justice system and policy. Yeah. So I will try and keep this very brief in that sense, and I will pick up from where Mr. Goel and Nirmala ma'am had spoken about the importance of crimes against women in particular in the context of elimination of violence against women as a global or universal mandate set by the CEDAW, right? If you look at the CEDAW mandate, basically what women's movements across the world were demanding and achieved was that all governments, all nation states across the world need to work on women's empowerment and also to provide or support in the quest for justice in particular once violence has occurred or their rights to equality have been violated. Now in that context, if you look at it, my preceding speakers have except for Nirmala ma'am have largely spoken about what is currently internationally as a standard known as primary prevention. You're talking about education for empowerment and to prevent violence from happening. However, as we all know, patriarchy itself, as Nirmala ma'am mentioned, is very lachila in a Hindi word. Yeah, it's extremely, its roots are so deep that it changes forms of violence as time passes by. So, for example, through the right to education or through metro in cities like Delhi and Bombay, you and having separate women's compartments in trains, you may have more and more women traveling for study and work. Yeah, but then voyeurism and stalking, yeah, cyber crimes, all of these become a new way, acid attacks, okay, all of these become a new way in which patriarchy responds. And the struggle from the interventionist lens, some of which we have won, of course, as Nirmala ma'am knows also, is to get those particular forms of violence recognized in law as crimes against women. The problem is that multiple forms of violence can also actually be looked at as crimes, yeah, under existing laws. For example, when you all talk about marital rape, right? Mr. Goyal, you spoke about marital rape. Now, marital rape per se actually can be treated as sexual assault under 376. And there are cases in the last 3 years that Thane and Mumbai police have filed, yeah, of sexual assault in 376 in marital, within marital situations. The only issue is that in our country, it appears that one of the primary battle for us as interventionists or policy advocacy people is that we need to fight for criminalization of very specific forms of violence. Technically, dishonor crimes and killings, which you were all talking about, can be addressed under existing various laws. So that is one thing to keep in mind. The other thing I quickly want to say is that in the context of reporting, yeah, while you shared all that data, which is extremely depressing, Mr. Goyal, I would also say from the interventionist perspective that for us, it's more important when we fight for all these laws that women are reporting violence and as crimes. Yeah. So we don't necessarily look at growing numbers itself as as a horrible thing, because we also know that the same NFHS survey or other data of Indian state agencies itself shows us that 1 in 3 women face violence, but only 1 in about 8 women even get to the point of going to court when they face violence. So crimes against women and reporting and numbers also needs to be understood in a more nuanced or deeper level when we are working on these issues. Yeah. The third point I very quickly want to make is, again, back in the context of CEDAW, where you're talking about justice. So while there is primary prevention work, there are people like us or like Nirmala ma'am or like Madhulika ma'am who are doing work in the context of secondary prevention. Secondary prevention means after violence has occurred, you provide survivor-centric interventions, psychosocial and legal support, such that the woman can access these complex and very often intimidating patriarchal systems like police or court or health system. They can access them as per their specific needs. Yeah. So for every survivor, there are very unique needs that require a multi-agency coordinated response. To get that done, we believe that you need trained professionals trained particularly in violence against women interventions, whether they're social workers or psychologists or lawyers, in all state systems. So you need helplines, you need the counselor in family court, you need the feminist lawyers for mediation and for on the district legal services authority, and you need the special cell social workers in police systems, in police stations, just as an example. And you need, like I said, telecounselors on 181 helplines, you need outreach vehicles, you need Mahila desks in police stations, which is current central government has just announced a few months ago. Just the very last point that I'll make, because I know that, I mean, we do have a shortage of time. I think it's also important for us to recognize that, violence against women, talking about it, and as you said, why we have the 16 days of activism and the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women is historically because the women's movement was organized and came out and started talking about these issues. However, the same patriarchy also functions differently for women and for many other gender and age-based identities, bodily identities. And hence today we also need to look at gender-based violence. Where there is violence on women, there is violence on children, there is violence on trans persons. There is violence on women, different kinds of violence on women who are not from dominant castes or not from majoritarian communities or who are from minority ethnicities. So, and I think we are all extremely aware of this, especially living in cities like Delhi and Bombay, where we have a very cosmopolitan kind of population as well. So I think that we need to think and look at all of these issues, and also understand that even during times like this COVID pandemic, that, violence against women has not stopped. In fact, it has increased in many ways in our own experience as special cells across the country in 15 states, in 300 plus special cells. The nature and form of violence changes. So we need to understand the reporting of crimes against women and the criminalization of particular forms of violence against women in that context, for being able to continue to respond to this thing, which, despite, as Nirmala ma'am said, bilkul sahi, ekdam sahi, ki we keep struggling because that is the right thing to do, but we are not necessarily able to finish it off. We are not able to necessarily defeat patriarchy or dismantle it once and for all. So I just wanted to close with saying that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for keeping your time intact. So Ms. Taranga has explained, although in a very, very fast mode, but yes, she has given all the details. I'm sure that our viewers might have understood everything, and they are enlightened, and especially the men, they should know where is the limit, where they have to change their attitude and their habits and their mental situation, so that they should give full respect to the women. Now, I would like to invite thank you very much, Ms. Taranga, for giving your views. Now, I would like to invite our next guest, and she is Ms. Sarik Ankita. Ms. Ankita is the head of the Department of Criminology at the School of Social Work, Roshni Niralaya, Mangaluru. She collaborated with and organized crime prevention and traffic awareness program with Mangaluru City Police. She has conducted several drug awareness and cybercrime awareness programs for students at different colleges. Welcome, Ms. Ankita, on our show. Ms. Ankita, you have already heard what Advocate Nirmala Samant, Advocate Madhulika, Ms. Nutan Jha, and Ms. Taranga has mentioned. So now we would like to know from you your views on crime against women. Ms. Sarik Ankita, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come for this program. And all my co-panelists have really spoken well on this topic, so I have nothing much to speak. This is a serious issue, what we see, and women face issues from the birth till the adulthood. If we see that the even before the child is born, the sex determination is done, and if it is a female child, then the child is killed, and they are not allowed in the childhood. They're not allowed. Children are not allowed to go to schools. They are deprived of education, and in adolescence, they are subjected to sexual violence, harassment, acid attack. Even in marriage, if she delivers a baby girl, again she is subjected to violence, dowry harassment. From the childhood till the adulthood, women faces lot of issues, and they are not allowed to raise their voice. They are not allowed to report. Most of the cases of crime against women, violence against women, is not reported. Why? Because the stigma what they face, and they are not allowed to even talk against their most of the cases. If we see, women are subjected to violence in their house, and they're not allowed to raise their voice. Somewhere I feel that the education has to be given. They are not aware about their rights. They're not aware about the legal rights available to them. So I feel that it's not just the government. Even all other organizations should come together, and they should focus on educating them. We should educate them to raise their voice against the evil what they are facing. I would like to focus more on prevention here. Media also can take a lead in the society to fight against the violence against women. Media's role should expose and generate the awareness against the society ills and evil. Now, media, what is media doing is, media is just focusing about the victim. When there's a victim, they advertise about her, and most of the victims think that they are subjected to violence, and then they go and report. Their identity is not kept confidential, so somewhere they are not reporting the case. So instead of advertising about the victim, they should create awareness about the issues. Government should encourage women organizations to take up various programs for care and protection of victims of violence. And law alone cannot solve all these problems. The government authorities, social organization, women organization, voluntary groups, NGO should come forward to raise this issue. And prevention is the only way to stop violence before even it occurs. So it requires political commitment, implementation of the law, and promote gender equality, investigate women's organization, addressing the multiple forms of discrimination women face daily. Again, the topic of violence is of great concern, and it should be immediately addressed. Women are facing violence, but they are not able to raise their voice. Why? Because one of the victim told me that when she was harassed by her friend, when she went and reported the incident to the police, she said that I was harassed more by a police officer by asking questions. Where did he touch? What did he do to you? So women are not able to go forward, and women are not able to speak. Somewhere I feel that this police officer should be trained on how to deal with the victims. Instead of treating them, the victims are often neglected section in the criminal justice system. As a co-panelist rightly pointed out, that accused is given more preference, whereas the victim is neglected. So I feel somewhere this police officials, with regard to law enforcement officials, with regard to police officials, they should be trained on dealing with this victim, and the support system that should be started from the police station itself. When victim go to the police to report about the incident, the basic programs or intervention, whatever is available for the victim's development, has to be told to the victim. The advocate, the legal authorities, help, all that should be given from the police station level. Here, victim is a sufferer, and they don't feel that they are getting the justice, and they don't feel that they are given importance. I feel somewhere that is the reason where the cases of violence against women are unreported.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ankita. And Ms. Ankita has emphasized on the role of police that the police should be very sensitive, should become sympathetic for the victims, and because the victims are feeling fear to go to a police station because they feel that whatsoever harassment they have got from the accused is not that much what they are getting from the police officers in many of the cases. And she says that those types of sensitivity should be done. Otherwise, it's very difficult to get the actual reporting of the violence or the crime against women. Thank you very much, Ms. Ankita, for giving your views. Now, I would like to ask the question. My first question goes to Advocate Nirmala Samant. Advocate Nirmala Samant, you were the chairperson of Maharashtra State Commission for Women for 4 or 5 years. Do you think, I am talking of the present time, the NCW, the National Commission of Women, and State Commission for Women are become political tools to harass opposition states or opposition parties instead of caring for the women? Because what we are seeing and what we are watching, that wherever there is a crime against women in a state ruled by opposition party, immediately NCW takes the action, send the summons or call the DGP, whatnot. But whenever there is a ruled by the ruling party, the NCW is very, very weak or is not taking any action. Similarly, even in the state commission for women, they are only taking action wherever there is some opposition leader is involved. I'm talking general. I'm not talking or blaming a particular party. What are your views, Advocate Nirmala Samant, please?
Partly you are right. I don't deny that, because Women's Commission is a public forum, and we are also viewers and we are also public when we talk about a personal opinion. And do respect your opinion. And there are instances where the sort of observation which has come forward from you, it is quite true, I can say so. But as you know that a women's commission should not be a political appointment. It has a recommendatory powers. Women's commission by itself doesn't have any powers to investigate or inquire into, but they can inquire and give recommendation. And many times it is called that women's NCW is a toothless tiger and cannot punish and cannot enforce the attendance and enforce the law, because we the commission is having its own rules, regulation, and its own constitution. But I do agree that many a times even women's organization fall prey to political superiority. And this why I agree with you, because if a political party reinforces a patriarchal norms, and that political party appoints a women's commission, so definitely it becomes more of a decorative thing rather than speaking against the subjugation, against the male superiority, and against the crime as such. So unfortunately, there are political ideologies which encourage women as a subjugation, and there are some political parties which feels that no, equality and gender justice has to be there. So it depends which political party has appointed a commission and how they toe the line.
Thank you very much for giving your frank views. And that is what my point is, that we blame only the men, but sometimes we should also think of our own self, because after all, the NCW consists of women only, not the men. And if NCW is failing to perform, or the not NCW, the State Commission for Women are failing to perform their duty apolitically, this is a crime against women, very heinous crime by women, or the by the women's. Thank you very much, Advocate Nirmala Samant, for giving your views. Now my question is to Advocate मधुलिका जी. मधुलिका जी, अभी आपने बहुत कुछ बताया कि एडवोकेट्स को केस नहीं लेना चाहिए अगर कोई रेप का है मामला. मैं आपसे पूछना चाहता हूं कि अभी एक केस हुआ था, निर्भया केस. कितने साल लगे आरोपियों को फांसी में जाने के लिए, सजा लेने के लिए? क्या किया आप लोगों ने? क्यों नहीं बताया? कहां हमारा कोर्ट्स हैं, चाहे वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट हो, हाई कोर्ट हो? क्यों नहीं एक टाइम फ्रेम फिक्स होता है कि अगर 6 मंथ्स है तो चाहे प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया हो, उन्हें 6 मंथ्स के अंदर ही सब कुछ डिसाइड करना चाहिए. जब तक आप टाइम नहीं फिक्स करवाएंगे तो 7 साल. ये तो इतना मीडिया प्रेशर था, हालांकि एक वन पैनलिस्ट ने हमें मीडिया को भी ब्लेम किया है, मीडिया का प्रेशर था और इस वजह से 7 साल में हो गई सजा. नहीं तो 17 साल में भी सजा नहीं होती। तो अगर आप लोगों को मूवमेंट ही करना है लेडीज को, विमेन्स को, तो क्यों नहीं आप लोग इसको प्रेशराइज करते हैं कि चाहे वो लोअर कोर्ट हो, हाई कोर्ट हो, सुप्रीम कोर्ट हो, प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया हो, जितने भी उसके पास रेमेडीज हैं, अगर 6 मंथ्स या 1 ईयर के अंदर टाइम फ्रेम में चलने चाहिए। व्हाई नॉट दे फॉलो द टाइम फ्रेम? व्हाई ओनली द टाइम फ्रेम्स आर फॉर अदर्स, नॉट फॉर द जुडिशरी? एडवोकेट मधुलिका जी।
देखिए, आपने बिल्कुल सही कहा गोयल जी कि निर्भया केस का जो मैटर था, अगर मीडिया का प्रेशर नहीं होता तो ये इतनी जल्दी अपराधियों को, क्रिमिनल्स को सजा नहीं मिलती।
एडवोकेट मधुलिका, जल्दी मीन्स 7 साल?
नहीं, जल्दी का मतलब 7 साल तो ये है, ये तो जल्दी
सोचिए
है, बल्कि
आप उनके परिवार के बारे में सोचिए, उनके बारे में सोचिए कि क्या एग्जाम्पल हुआ है इससे, और जो ऑफेंडर्स हैं वो सोचते हैं कि अरे ये तो 7 साल तो ऐसे ही निकल जाएंगे और हमारी जुगाड़ मिल गई, अच्छा कोई एडवोकेट मिल गया।
देखिए सर, यही तो गोयल जी एक हमारी फेलियर ऑफ जस्टिस है कि जो एक टाइम पीरियड के अंदर में, एक मिनिमम टाइम पीरियड के अंदर में ऐसे हीनियस क्रिमिनल्स को सजा मिलनी चाहिए, उनको पनिश होना चाहिए, वो नहीं होता है। तो इसके लिए एक लॉ बनाया जाना चाहिए जिससे कि जो वायलेंस हो, इस तरीके का जो क्राइम होता है, वो जल्दी से जल्दी एक टाइम लिमिट के अंदर में पूरा कर दिया, खत्म कर दिया जाए। लेकिन हमारे इतनी टेक्निकलिटी से होती है कि अगर मान लीजिए कोई लोअर कोर्ट से अगर कोई केस हार गया है तो वो अपर उसमें अपील कर देता है, रिव्यू हो जाता है, उसके बाद में वो हाई कोर्ट चला जाता है, हाई कोर्ट से भी अगर फेल हो गया तो वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट चला जाता है। इन सब मैटर में इतना टाइम लगे, वो डिले हो जाता है कि उस जस्टिस का कोई मतलब ही नहीं बनता है। तो मैं यही कहना चाह रही थी कि अगर हम एडवोकेट जो हैं वो एक तय कर लें कि अगर इस तरीके के हीनियस क्राइम का मैटर लेंगे ही नहीं तो कहीं हद तक हम अपनी सोसाइटी के प्रति जो हमारी लाइबिलिटी है उसको हम पूरा कर पाएंगे, और जो विक्टिम पर्सन है उसको हम एक जस्टिस दिला पाएंगे। लेकिन ये हो नहीं पाता है।
नहीं एडवोकेट मधुलिका, थोड़ा सा इसमें मैं आपसे डिफर इसलिए करूंगा कि कई बार ऐसा देखा गया है, नॉट कई बार, समटाइम्स आई कैन से, कि जहां पे फर्जी केस भी किए गए हैं, गलत केस भी किए गए हैं लेडीज की ओर से। आई डू नॉट वांट टू ब्लेम, बट इसलिए एडवोकेट होना जरूरी है। लेकिन अगर आप टाइम फ्रेम, फास्ट ट्रैक कोर्ट बनती है लोअर कोर्ट्स के लिए, व्हाट अबाउट फास्ट ट्रैक इन हाई कोर्ट, व्हाट अबाउट फास्ट ट्रैक इन सुप्रीम कोर्ट? यस, देयर आर इंसिडेंट्स, रिसेंटली वी हैव सीन द इंसिडेंट दैट हाउ फास्ट द सुप्रीम कोर्ट एंड हैज मूव्ड टू गिव द बेल टू somebody, but they are not there to listen to the real victims of the rape victims or the women. Anyway, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद एडवोकेट मधुलिका जी, पर मेरे को अब आशा ही नहीं, पूर्ण विश्वास है कि आप इस तरह का प्रश्न अपने एडवोकेट फॉर्म में उठाएंगे कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट, इवन प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया, why there are delay of years? President of India can do in 5 minutes. Why they want so much time? Anyways, thank you very much, Advocate Madhulika. Now I'm coming to Ms. Nutan Jha. Ms. Nutan Jha, you are associated with films or the ads or the things. Now I'm asking you, projecting women as a weak gender in films give encouragement to commit crimes against women. Why the film producers, directors, majority of films, I can say very few exceptionals are there. And one of the panelists says that they pray, they pray for the 9 days or whatnot for the, as a Durga or Devi Mata, and then they commit the crime. Similarly, except those films which are like Jai Santoshi Ma or Ramayana, etc. What about other films? They always show a weaker gender and project women as a weaker gender. Why that there is no change in the that thing? Because everybody watch the films today, the social media. What do you say about this, Ms. Jha?
I agree with you totally. And why they do it still, I cannot understand, especially the educated lot. I cannot understand why they do it, probably to earn money. I think at least us who understand the difference should stop watching crap. Just stop watching these movies. We should not watch it and explain to our children that this is wrong. And like I said, it's at every level. The parents should explain, teachers should explain it. Let everyone in society step towards it. And I agree with you, it should not be, not just in films, like I said, books, art, every form where we show women, let's show them with a lot more respect. Why they do it, I do not know. Mine is, Mr. Lal, not so much movies and ads, but it is more management of projects like art or sports. So
Okay.
not so much movies, but yeah, I cannot understand why they still do it. The only reason I can think of is that they want to make money. They
Okay.
want more people to come and see their movies. So they're
Okay.
catering to,
So for money,
not
they are
correct.
ready to do anything immoral, moral. They are not bothered. They are
It
only
seems so.
interested to earn money. Okay. So I think the women organization should take action. That why not? If you come together, you can do many things.
Gee.
Anyways, now my next question is to Miss Ankita, no, Miss Taranga. Miss Taranga, because you are in TISS, and so I have to ask a very specific question to you. 48.03% of the population of women today in India, almost 50%, but yes, 2% less. There are only 78 MPs out of 543 in Lok Sabha, and that is only 14.36%. Total 25 MPs, women MPs I'm talking, out of 245 in Rajya Sabha, only 10.20%, because of the division among women. Tell me, forget about Lok Sabha, you can very well say winnable, we want winnable candidate who can win the election. Rajya Sabha is not that. Rajya Sabha is being nominated by the parties, where they say this is our candidate, whether he's X, Y, Z, whether he's a horse or X, Y, Z, the party line has to be told. Why? Why the women's cannot get 50% or the 48% in Rajya Sabha? Why you people have not asked this? You are, if the women, they are asking for the Lok Sabha. Why Lok Sabha? Come for the Rajya Sabha first. Once you are in Rajya Sabha, you have a right to reject a bill if you are in if the bill is not proper. There are so many ifs and buts you can put on the commas and full stop. So why the women are not going for that? Secondly, in the political parties, when there is a population of 48% of the ladies, women, it means the political members, if the membership is for 1 million or 1 crore, the 48% belongs to the women side. Why not that much candidates are coming? Because you yourself, I am blaming the women, are not empowered themselves, and they are not interested to take action against the political bigwigs. They feel, no, we are satisfied. Whatsoever I'm using word he can be of any of the political party, is saying is right. We have to follow. What do you say about this, Mr. Ranga?
I do, I mean, obviously I feel as strongly about this as you do, Mr. Goel, that we do need and it's very tragic that I remember that when I was working in Government of India in the ministry is when the parliamentary reservation bill had gone through, and again it was defeated, and it was defeated in Rajya Sabha. Interestingly, Lok Sabha had passed it. I'm sure Nirmala ma'am will remember this, but it went to Rajya Sabha, which is where it was defeated. So but on the other hand, what I will disagree with you, Mr. Goel, factually, is that Indian women's movements have not fought for this, because there has been a huge amount of work and advocacy around this by think tanks also, and also by actual Indian women's movements. Now, I will, however, answer your question regarding why it has not come through. Ek cheez that we observed when I was working with Mahila Samakhya, I was national consultant there. So again, 12 states working in rural areas in particular of India, north, south, northeast, everywhere. One of the things that we saw is that the second that the 73rd amendment came in, and there was reservation in local self-governance in Panchayati Raj institutions, what started happening is that political parties as well as local communities, both of which are extremely patriarchal, started putting up women candidates only in the reserved seats, not in general seats also. So one of the things that the work that we did in everywhere from Uttarakhand to Andhra to Assam to Gujarat is that we worked with women to tayyar karo them to stand for elections. Yeah. And the other thing that we did is those those who had been voted into power already, to work with them to exercise the power and not have that sarpanch pati thing happening. Now, the same thing is working with political parties today. A political party is an extremely hierarchical and patriarchal institution in its internal structure also, in many ways that it works, just the way jurisprudence works, court system works. So I think it's very important to see and understand that as well, in understanding why the number of, which you have said correctly, it's alarming, the number of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha MPs who are women has dropped from the last Lok Sabha, from the last general elections, which is scary. It is absolutely true. But women are part of, and I know I have batchmates and friends who are members of various political parties, are women, have worked for years and years, but have been promised a ticket and at the last second have not got it. Yeah, and they have not left the party nevertheless, because it's the only way that they get to do some good.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think, yeah, we need to be a little balanced when we say, why do women not stand? Women
No, but the experience is that even the local or panchayat, wherever the women reservations are there, the women's are only the candidates or the face. The husbands are sitting and doing the meetings, conducting the meetings. That is also a fact of the life. Anyways, thank you very much for your views. Now my question is to Ms. Sankita. You are a head of the Department of Criminology. When in a medical field, a doctor can only see a patient, why the criminology is not made compulsory to be in police department, at least for the crime branch? After all, we have seen what is the percentage of the success of the prosecution? Very less, because either the investigation is not proper, the IO was not properly trained, he doesn't know how to do the investigation. If he's honest, if he's dishonest, so whatsoever the education. But why the criminology is not made compulsory in the police department, and everyone they are appointing now, because the criminology is now taught almost everywhere in India? What you say about this, Ms. Sankita?
Sir, criminology is compulsory in sub-inspector examinations. Sir. They study one paper on criminology.
No, I'm not talking of one paper. I am saying the degree or from as a criminology, that those who have passed. That's what I gave an opening remark. Only in a hospital they will appoint a doctor. They cannot appoint me as a doctor to see the patient. Why not they appoint? I'm not talking of IPS right now, but I'm talking at least from your sub-inspector or inspector or even the constable, that they should have the criminology background, the education-wise.
Yes, sir. The fight is still going on. The criminologists all over India are fighting for it. Earlier, they used to take into consideration criminology subject, but later on, they removed it from Karnataka. I'm talking about Karnataka. Karnataka Public Service Commission also, the criminology subject is removed. Only for the sub-inspector level, I think they have to compulsory undergo a criminology paper. Other than that, no, they've not given consideration for criminology. And I can say, sir, criminology students are better investigating officers, because in 3 years they study everything with regard to investigation. But it's the sad part that they are not giving importance to the subject. Again, policy makers should take into consideration and give importance to the subject.
Okay, thank you very much. So today you have seen the views of the women, and you have seen what they have suffered and what they are suffering. They means not these panelists, but the women in general in India. And this is because of the male-dominated society in India. Whatsoever we will say, whatsoever we talk on this today's day, when the International Day we are celebrating, it is not a celebration. We are observing. No, we are not observing. Right now we are talking, somewhere the rape is taking place, somewhere the domestic violence is taking place. And this can only be stopped if the women themselves unite themselves. If they all are united, no male have dare or can do anything. Today in COVID era time, we survived, the male population survived because of the women. We got the home food, made food in the kitchen, and that's why we survived. We should be thankful to them, but we are not. We are the thankless society of the male-dominated society. I think the male or the civil society should think themselves. After all, they are, when we pray to them in all the religion, why not we pray in actual life? Thank you very much for the today's show, which has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, Newsgaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to bring to you every day a new topic. And tomorrow, media conference with Lal Goyal, the topic is lockdown lessons of young mothers. And the panelists are Dr. Rajiv Anand, Senior Psychiatrist and Marriage Counselor, Mumbai. We have Dr. Priyanka Suresh Karnade, MBBS MS of the mother. She's a mother, young mother. Then we have Miss Simran Kaur Arora, young mother again, and Miss Kanisha Shehnai. She's also a young mother. So tomorrow, please do join for media conference with Lal Goyal at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Advocate Nimla Saman. Thank you very much, Advocate Madhulika. Thank you very much, Ms. Nutan Jha. Thank you very much, Ms. Taranga. And thank you very much, Ms. Ankita, for joining and giving your vibrant views. I am sure our viewers and our civil society will at least shake up something so that something should go for the benefit of the women on this important day. Thank you very much.